My husband Alex, 32 male, and I, 29 female, have been married for 3 years, together for 5. He has a longtime best friend, Jack, 35 male, that has been in his life since before my husband and I met. I like him well enough. The two of them have always been close and spent such a large amount of time together that at one point, I was almost starting to suspect that my husband was lying about his whereabouts and was actually with another woman. I would randomly ask him to FaceTime me or send me a photo as proof that he was where he said he was, and he would always comply. Jack has been talking about building his dream home for a few years now. The guy's pretty well off and has roped my husband into his planning process, saying Alex will be over constantly anyway, so he should have some say in things. This has been a passion project so many years in the making that I never thought it would actually come to fruition. Still, Jack and my husband came to me about a month ago with requests for Jack to stay at our place while his previous house sold, and he worked on apartment hunting to tide him over until the build was complete. So I agreed to let him stay for no longer than a month. The official date he was supposed to leave was July 30th. His house is sold and he's toured a few apartments, but from what I can tell, he hasn't made a move to rent anything. I continually asked my husband for an update leading up to July 30th and wasn't provided with much. So last night, I told Jack he has until the end of this week to figure something out, as he's already overstayed his welcome. Both he and my husband immediately lashed out, saying I was a terrible host and that he needed more time than that to sort out an apartment. I said I had already given him a month. My husband currently isn't speaking to me. Am I the idiot for putting my foot down? He's well off and yet has to stay with you while he builds his dream home? Yeah, well-off people can still be cheapskates. Not the idiot. You opened the door for a discussion about Jack staying longer when you asked your husband about his plans in the days leading up to the 30th, and he chose to be evasive. But why are you concerned about this fight when there's the bigger problem of needing to prove your husband isn't having an affair? Not having trust between you two, to the point that you all exchange photos of proof, is a big problem. Oh, honey, your husband is having at least an emotional affair. He may very well be having a physical one as well. It sounds like this situation shows that you need to figure out what's happening between them. Don't turn a blind eye any longer. You deserve to be your husband's number one, but it sounds like your husband already has a number one. So I suspect when the friend goes, the husband may follow. Sorry, OP. Somebody hold my Dr. Pepper while I jump into this pool of conclusions over here. Your husband and Jack are having an affair. Please update if Heck, that's my relationship nickname for husband and Jack, starts referring to the dream house they're building together as our house, or if they come to you with a convoluted story about how they did find an apartment, but it's for women only, and so maybe you could stay there for a while. Something is definitely up, OP. I recommend paying close attention the next few days, and I suggest you get a nanny cam if possible when you aren't around. I've read 3 paragraphs about a snippet of your marriage, and I'm second-guessing things. There's probably more. It genuinely sounds like your husband is just using your home as a crash pad until his boyfriend's house is ready, and then he'll bounce. I have a young child and an infant. The transition from 1 to 2 has been tough, especially with a newborn. My husband has been an amazing help, but he had to go on a business trip. Going on this trip would ensure he didn't have to travel for at least a year, so I told him to go as it was only a week. 4 days in, I was exhausted and overwhelmed. I got maybe an hour or 2 of sleep each night, combined with each kid's needs, housework, and me semi-transitioning back to work. I have no help outside my nanny, no family in the area, and friends are busy with work. Our nanny's also transitioning into caring for both kids, with a pay raise, now $30 an hour. She's mainly cared for my eldest since birth. He's gone to camp this summer, so she's worked about 25 hours a week, still compensated for her usual 36. I was fried and wiped, offering her overtime to come in when my son was at camp to watch the baby for 4 hours so I could nap. I told her if she didn't want to, it was fine, and I'd try to find a sitter. She insisted she could do it. I gave her the condition that I was not to be woken up unless there was a true emergency. Someone is ill or injured, there's a fire, or the baby won't take her bottle, mainly breastfed, but usually will take a bottle, or is inconsolable. She agreed. Remember that she's worked for us since our eldest was a baby. She has experience with newborns and knows what comes with that. I finally fall into a much-needed deep sleep. It felt like 5 minutes. It turned out to be 30. I'm being shaken awake. At first, I was groggy and disoriented. The nanny was leaning over me saying the baby had a blowout. It took me a minute to come to my senses, and I finally said, "Okay." She asked if she should have a bath, do I want the sheets thrown in the wash, etc. I then realized there was no true emergency. It's normal for babies at this age to have that happen, and I've told her in the past, if my eldest wets the bed, just leave the sheets in the laundry room and bathe him. She just kept staring at me, so I snapped, "Do what you would do for eldest kid. Why did you wake me up?" She got defensive and said she was just checking. I reminded her of our deal, and she walked out. I tried to fall back asleep, but couldn't, as my baby was crying from getting a bath and being changed. I would have slept through it if I hadn't woken up, as they were in another room. I always wake up if she's beside me. Finally, the baby stopped crying, but I was wide awake and couldn't fall back asleep. After an hour, I gave up, went and grabbed my baby, dismissing the nanny. She texted me later saying I disrespected her, and she didn't deserve that. I told her I was sorry for my tone, but that wasn't an emergency, and it defeated the purpose of me getting a break. I paid her for the full 4 hours, even though she was only there for 2, as I did choose to dismiss her. She says I'm the mom, so it shouldn't be a burden. It's not a burden, but I needed the break, and she was being paid $45 an hour, overtime rate. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. I'm no nanny. I'm a 22-year-old child-free dude. I wouldn't wake you up for that. Literally, what else would she think you'd want her to do with the baby in that situation? If you paid her to let you sleep, that's all she had to do. I know it's the last thing you need, but I'd start interviewing new nannies ASAP. OP pays the nanny fat, gives her explicit instructions as to why OP wanted to be left alone, gets angry when the nanny does not follow the instructions, sends her home and still pays the nanny for the agreed upon hours. OP is not the idiot at all. OMG, why have kids if you can't handle them alone? I'm sorry, but why is your older kid away at camp? I would never trust anyone with my child, especially with how everything is in this world. As for nanny, for her to shake you like that is a very good reason to wake up in a bad mood. You both are the idiots. I have no help outside my nanny? Entitled much? LOL? Do you know how lucky you are to have a nanny? Most people don't have that luxury. I just couldn't get past this. Onto your issues. Use your words. I'm exhausted. Do not wake me up unless the sky's exploding. Repeat. Have nanny repeat it back to you. Go to sleep. Don't snap at nanny. Jobs for her are a dime a dozen these days. I'm currently pregnant with my first child. My fiance and I collectively decided to hold off telling people for at least 3 months for the following reasons. I didn't want to jump the gun in case it didn't work out. My sister was in mid-pregnancy with her first after struggling with conceiving for 7 years, and we didn't want to steal the thunder. So the baby was born and all was well. My fiance and I decided to hold off another month so all attention could be on my sister and nephew. We announced it to his friends and family in the meantime, and everyone was super thrilled. A few days ago, I told my parents, and they were over the moon. I sent out a nice email with a little e-card and some sonogram pics to the family members that are spread out and that I don't see regularly and can't tell in person, my sister included, as she lives in a different state than I do. We got a lot of congratulations and excitement from almost everyone, except my sister and her husband. She called in tears, tearing into me for planning this and stealing attention from her son that took her so long to have. I told her this wasn't planned, it just happened. That made things worse, as I'm significantly younger than her, and then it turned into her ranting at me about how nice it must be to be able to get pregnant when she had to fight to get pregnant, struggle, in her words, actually worked to have a family. Her husband was in the background and backing her up. I told her we had even taken an extra month to wait to tell people, specifically so she and my nephew could have undivided celebration and attention. Then I ended the call. My fiance and his family are on our side. My family's a little too OMG new baby to gauge properly, but my sister and her husband think I'm an idiot. Am I here? Not the idiot. Drama queen detected. Your sister may not be in a clear state of mind due to hormones, exhaustion, and potentially even postpartum depression. Don't take it too personally and let her have time to sit with it for a few days before trying to talk again. You've done nothing wrong, and she doesn't get to decide when someone else can get pregnant or under what circumstances. It was considerate of you to wait as long as you did. Infertility struggles cause trauma. It's a little harsh to jump to drama queen immediately. This sounds more like a projection of her struggles and resentment for her own perceived failure to conceive being pushed onto OP, rather than her being a drama queen. You waited 3 months while your sister was still pregnant, and then 1 month after the kid. Did she expect you to wait until you had your kid? And then what? Just say it was adopted? She's just mad because OP got a kid the way she wishes she had. It's jealousy. I can't get people wanting attention like they're in some sort of real-life competition or something. Anyhow, maybe it's just me. Also, postpartum depression is no excuse to act crappy. Wish you a healthy pregnancy. Ignore toxic people. They're not worthy of your attention. My fiance, male 25, was raised very differently from me, female 26. I grew up playing sports and from an early age, grew to appreciate my talents and respect other work ethics. To realize other individuals succeeding didn't take anything away from me, and giving 100% doesn't always mean success in life. I was given lessons about failure on the field and in the classroom, making me comfortable with loss. My fiancé, on the other hand, has a more challenging time than me with this notion. He grew up in a small town with a graduating class of 70. In his high school, everyone knew everyone, and they definitely knew him. In his household, succeeding and excelling were all that mattered. His parents never taught him how to fail or cope with not always being the best. School was such an important issue in their household that he wasn't required to do any household work, cook or do laundry. He just needed to bring home A's. He loved the praise, the recognition, and the accolades he received for his achievements. And anyone should, right? Well, he doesn't cope with not being the best or receiving praise the best way. My fiancé dropped out of college because he wanted to be the best in his hometown, to be amongst others who were smarter, more ambitious, harder working individuals than him, and couldn't handle not being on top. He couldn't handle figuring out new study methods. He couldn't help feeling average. He explained that he'd hate not going through school being great and left, to which his family blamed me. From the outside, it looked as though he met me. We got serious. He left school. His family had no idea what could have changed besides him meeting me. It led to a hard integration process with his family. Now he's seen his former classmates graduate and start their careers, and he feels inadequate. He won't take a job he feels is beneath him because he's better than that. But the jobs he's interested in, he can't get because of his lack of a degree. I've attempted to motivate him to go back to school, but he's frankly afraid of the challenges and not succeeding the way he wants. I'm not sure how to encourage him to move past this, as excelling and being on top is all he knows. We have a daughter that just turned 2, and she's around that age where we're starting to implement our values and morals in her, to which she has a foundation to make her own choices. Of course, I want her to strive to be the best, to believe in herself, and to always go above and beyond what she's comfortable with, but I don't want her to crash and burn under pressure. I want her to respect others' talents, be comfortable with not always receiving praise, and be the best at everything she does. I want her to strive because she wants to, not because she needs validation or recognition. Am I the idiot for not wanting to raise her like my fiancé was? Not the idiot, but your jobless fiancé is. Not taking a job that's beneath him? There is no job beneath him, as he's a person and has a family to help support him. That's just code for lazy and entitled. Stop buying his BS. You've put up with his nonsense far longer than you should have. He needs therapy, badly. I don't usually deal in black and white with parenting. I think there's a lot of gray area on this one. You're right, he's wrong. Really though, therapy. You are the idiot for denying your own values by getting together with your fiancé, who's completely incompatible. You two are headed for a divisive co-parenting fight for the next 2 decades, which will only hurt your child, who will be stuck in the middle of it. Unless your fiancé gets therapy and then has a come-to-Jesus moment, there's no answer here. You can't defend your values unless you defend your values by waiting until you find someone who shares them. Agree. His child needs him to provide for her, but he won't take jobs or go back to school. He's not adding anything to this partnership. He is the average loser he thinks he is. He needs to get over it and provide for his family. I, 34 male, have a sister, Caitlin, 21. We have a decent age gap. We're technically half siblings, but never used the term. Her dad left before she was born. Our mom died when I was 22 and Caitlin was little. As I essentially helped my mom raise her, I gained custody and continued to raise her. I adopted her, and while we still refer to each other as brother and sister, she will always be my first kid. I changed her diapers and started clothing and feeding her long before our mom died, as our mom needed financial help. I was there for every nightmare and temper tantrum and survived the hormonal teenager years. She's my kid, no doubting that. Caitlin is at college now but still lives with me on breaks. I've been dating my current girlfriend, Abby, 32, for 8 months. We've begun discussing the future, what we see for ourselves, etc. I mentioned that it was important that Caitlin always have a home with me, that I'd always want a room set aside for her, etc. Abby was somewhat hesitant and asked why. I told her that if anything happened, I want Caitlin to have a safe place to land. Abby doesn't like that. She asked what happens when we have kids. I said I could care for all of them, but Caitlin is my first kid, and she'd be a priority, same as the rest. I'd do the same for any kid we had. Abby got angry and said our kids would be my real kids, and they should come before Caitlin. I refused. She told me this was wrong, and I'd be a horrible father if I acted like this. Our hypothetical kids deserved better, etc. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. This woman just did you a favor. She gave you an out before trapping you with kids. Bail on this person now because her opinion on this will never change. She doesn't understand, doesn't want to understand, and it'll only worsen. OP, you think it's a coincidence she waited until now to say this, even though she almost certainly felt like that from the beginning? This is the red flag you need to move on. This isn't someone you want to build a life with. Your relationship essentially ended the moment she said real kids. You can hem and haw and delude yourself into thinking that you can look past this, but the resentment is always going to be there. Caitlin is your daughter. Your partner doesn't see her as your daughter and believes that biological children, who don't exist, are real, and that any child who comes from alternate situations, like adoption, is not a real child. That is a fundamental incompatibility with who you are as a person. You are the idiot. Why would your presumably adult sister need the same attention that a small child, who isn't even alive yet, gets? Caitlin would most likely be living her own independent life by that point and not need her older brother to prioritize her the way he would his hypothetical baby. Here's the thing. I think OP needs to think through what it means to have a room dedicated to an adult, not now but at some point, in your home. At some point there has to be some sort of reasonable balance and expectation that the little sister is responsible for and can manage her own life. Good luck to all of you. As part of our divorce agreement, my ex-husband was supposed to have a $1 million life insurance policy with our daughter listed as the beneficiary. He was not supposed to change his policy without my approval. He passed away last year, and I found out he added his other 2 kids to the policy without asking me. He didn't even raise the amount of the policy, so it would have meant that our daughter would have gotten 1/3 of the money instead of everything she was supposed to get. I immediately went to a lawyer to see what could be done. He got the court to stop the insurance company from paying out until this was dealt with. It's now been officially settled that all the money was put into a trust for my daughter. It caused a bit of tension with my ex's wife, Emma, the other kid's mother, to say the least. I still see her every so often when dropping off or picking up my daughter at my ex-in-laws. They're all very nice people and fortunately have been there as a buffer so all three kids can still have a relationship with each other without Emma and I having to be too involved. However, there are still times when I drop off or pick up my daughter when I run into Emma. Every single time I do, she brings up how broke she is. Yesterday I bumped into her again after we dropped the kids off. I admit it wasn't my finest moment, but as I was heading to my car, she brought up being broke again, and I rolled my eyes. That set her off, and she brought up the life insurance money again, and how much of a witch I was to take that money away from her kids. They deserved the money just as much as my daughter, and should have gotten an equal share, and that it was what their father wanted. They got left with nothing because of me. Thankfully, all the kids were inside while this happened. I decided to leave and not engage her, but it's still bothering me. Am I the idiot for contesting my ex-husband's life insurance and taking it away from my daughter's poor half-siblings? Edit. My daughter's a tween. Emma's kids are a young grammar schooler and a preschooler. The divorce was 6 years ago. I am not in control of my daughter's trust and cannot move the money around or give some of the money to the siblings. I can only ask for certain expenses for my daughter paid directly from the trust with the trustee's approval. So this was a mistress turned wife? Not the idiot. It's not your fault your ex decided to go against his divorce agreement instead of setting something up for his other two children and the new wife. His actions aren't on you. You went legally to get what was owed to your child. Legally, you're in the right, and ethically, the mistake is his. Oh, and everyone's saying you should have just shared it with his other two kids really doesn't seem to understand that it's not your money, and it never was. You advocated for your child, the legal recipient of that payout, to receive the full amount of what she's legally entitled to. It's not just some arbitrary thing, and it was enforced because an insurance policy is a legally binding contract, and so is your divorce agreement. 100% this. The idiot is the ex who failed to get a policy for his additional children. He knew this might not hold up, but didn't care to purchase a second policy. The new wife's anger should be directed at him. All OP did was enforce what had already been determined legally. Possible, but you're assuming that given the size of the policy, he may have had enough income to justify greater coverage. I'm just pointing out that the typical American middle-class person will not get approved for $3 million in term life, $1 million for each kid. Did she know about the divorce settlement and that he'd changed the policy without you knowing? If she did, then she's a victim of her own doing. There's no way the ex-husband didn't understand the divorce decree. He just played a stupid game and assumed he wouldn't die. So who would know? Emma either was lied to by him or was in on it too. He was likely expecting a mix of not finding out until it was too late after the payout and that you would feel so bad for abandoning his other children. He left them with nothing. Not you. You didn't do that. Dude set one woman up to blame the other when the dominoes fell, when really he was trying to screw them both. My wife works about an hour away from our home. I work mostly remotely at home, so I've been the one to take care of our girls, pre-tween and younger child, for a few years now. I drive them to school and to practices, and I usually eat lunch with them. We eat dinner at 7 as a family. This is a non-negotiable because the girls get home at 6 from after-school activities, and we both agreed that they should sleep, preferably at 9 to 10. Dinner's usually a chance for us to sit and bond. Because my wife works from 9 to 4 to 5 during the weekday, she usually barely sees them during the weekdays. We spend much time together on the weekend, though. Additionally, she isn't vegan, but she comes from a Buddhist family and prefers to reduce animal products in her diet. Because of this, she comes home and usually takes a lot of time to make her dinner by herself. When she's done making the food, either one or both girls are finished eating, or they're almost finished eating, and she's missed out on a ton of them talking about their day. I've tried finding solutions, like cooking for her beforehand or cooking a vegetarian meal for the whole family. Still, she doesn't like my cooking, even when I try to imitate her meals. So far, I've been texting her what she wants to make and cleaning and prepping the food for her, but sometimes she changes her mind, or she takes a while to cook anyway. I've tried talking to her about it, but she says, "What do you want me to do? Starve at the dinner table?" She says she wants to hear about their day too, but it's just not feasible. So I told her that Tuesday and Thursdays, I would make the food for us as a family, and she would eat with us. She told me that I'm an idiot because she works hard every day, and she just wants to eat her own food, not be forced to eat mine. I think spending time with the family during the week is important. Am I the idiot? Also, I think I'm a pretty good cook. I'm not amazing or anything, but the girls like my food. I'm pretty weirded out that you think a parent who works fewer hours than the average adult barely sees them on weekdays. Like most Americans of my generation, and most of the younger generations as well, I grew up with two working parents. Treating it as a strange, aberrant thing that one parent works outside the home for 35 to 40 hours a week is pretty bizarre. Forcing another adult to eat food they don't like rarely goes well, fights in resentment and tension. But what your wife is doing does sound unreasonable. It shouldn't routinely take over 2 hours to make a weekday dinner. If she wants to cook for herself, she needs to start choosing recipes that are less time-consuming or doing much more advanced prep after the kids are in bed. Everyone's the idiot here. You for trying to treat her like a child, her for investing so much time into cooking so often that she doesn't have much time for her family. I agree with everything but the judgment. OP has been taking on the majority of raising the girls during the week and rightfully expects at least some quality family time. I also appreciate that OP has tried to figure out solutions, and I agree the wife seems like she doesn't want any of it. It seems that OP is working, raising the kids, and volunteering to do anything for their wife to have dinner together, but she can't eat his food, or it keeps changing her mind? What sort of BS is this? Strong, not the idiot. I'm shocked people are saying differently. My brother married Carly 10 years ago, and they asked to use my beachfront property as the venue. I said, sure, but you have to pay me. It's not like I can let someone use it for free, and I don't have costs such as utilities. I'm not rich like that. They were insulted, so I told them to ask Carly's rich daddy to pay. That set in motion a long-standing grudge between Carly and me. My brother got over it after he understood where I was coming from. They did quite well for themselves, but she felt insulted and entitled, and I refused to apologize. They have a preteen son, Addison, who I'm very close to. I'm like a second dad to that kid. My brother has been battling cancer for a few years, and his health is declining. He made it clear that he wants me to play an active role in Addison's life and be the dad he won't be able to be. The only person making that hard is Carly. I finally told her that my brother's impending death was more significant than her grudge against me, and she needed to drop it because her only child would need me more than ever. She said not to talk to her that way. I said, I'm not my brother and I'm not your dad. I don't think you're a princess. Grow up. If I were you, I'd learn from this and do what's best for that boy. So, am I the idiot for telling my sister-in-law it's time to get over my declining her and my brother using my property for their wedding? I told them to ask Carly's rich daddy to pay, and I said, I'm not your brother, and I'm not your dad. I don't think you're a princess. Grow up. If I were you, I'd learn from this and do what's best for that boy. Gee, I wonder why she doesn't want you around. Sir, you are the idiot. In all honesty, given how you speak to and about her, being around you might not be in Addison's best interest. You're rude to people and then refuse to apologize. This is also a pretty poor example to set. She's about to lose her husband, and you showed no compassion, only contempt. Agree, OP is the idiot. I wouldn't want OP around my child setting an example. He's about to be shocked when his brother dies, and she doesn't need him and actually chooses to keep him away. Dude, if you want to see your nephew, you need her, not vice versa. And frankly, you come across as extremely full of yourself. That child needs you? No, he doesn't. There are other ways for her to find positive male role models for her son. While I agree that she's wrong for nurturing a grudge, in her position, I wouldn't want you around my son either. Newsflash, Carly isn't holding a grudge about you not letting them use the property for the wedding. She just doesn't like you because of the complete lack of respect and decency you have for her. If you care about your nephew, you must do some major self-reflection. You come off as very arrogant and misogynistic in the way you speak about your sister-in-law. If you continue behaving this way, you will not have any relationship with her son after your brother dies. Your property, your decision. Her son, her decision. See how that works? I, male 35, have been married to my wife 33 for 10 years, and we have a son, pre-tween. My wife is a homemaker, and I work as an engineer. We have a joint account, and she can access my other accounts. I've always trusted her and never controlled the money. A few weeks ago, I noticed some strange money transactions going to her account and my rarely accessed account. There were several dollar transfers to her account on different days. I asked my wife what she used the money for, but she tried evading the question. I kept pressing, and she confessed. She was using this money to gamble on online betting sites. She lost over $9,000 in gambling in the past few weeks. She admitted to having a gambling problem and was trying to stop. I decided to cut off her access to our finances and give her an allowance. She was very upset and said I was being unfair and controlling. I think I'm being reasonable. I'm not sure if I can trust her again after what she did. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. You are doing the smart thing, protecting what you still have for both of you. You'd be dumb not to. That being said, if you value the marriage and if she does too, she needs therapy to overcome this and earn your trust back. And she needs a part-time job to occupy her time now that your kid is in school. She's probably bored and was looking for something to do when she got hooked on online gambling. I would ask her to stay with her parents until she gets help. I have a warning for you. Just because you cut off her access to the finances that you have, you probably need to freeze your credit card as well. I have no doubt she knows your social security number. She can easily apply for a payday loan or a line of credit on your house by using an online company. All she'll need is social security numbers and your personal information, which I'm sure she has, along with your tax returns. I know that sounds harsh and final, but when you have children involved and there's an addict of any kind, the child's needs come first. Your wife only came clean because she got caught, so you need to lock down all your credit. So I'm 28 female, engaged to Jake, 27 male. We've been together for 5 years, and I'm pregnant with our second child, who's due any day now. I get along with his family except for Jenny, who was dating Jake from ages 14 to 16. She ended up moving in with them because of issues at home, and she's also super close to his sister. Jake told me when they broke up, it caused issues, and he ended up moving out at 17 to live with his uncle, which Jenny saw as them choosing her. Jake was no contact with his family when we got together, but they ended up speaking again after we had our first child, and Jenny had at that stage claimed them as her own family for as long as I've known her. She makes jokes about being the favorite and that if any of the siblings or their partners get on her wrong side, she'll have them kicked out of the family, like she did Jake. Not true. When we first met them, Jenny was extremely cold and rude to me. She kept making comments about how disappointed she was in Jake. It's not gotten better. She told me multiple times I'll never be a part of their family and keeps making out like I'm just a fling that'll disappear one day. My in-laws had a get-together tonight for dinner and a few drinks. Obviously, with me being 2 days overdue, everyone was buzzing and giving me attention, which made Jenny angry. I came out of the bathroom at one stage, and Jenny, who had one too many, was waiting for me. She told me that no matter how many times I get pregnant, or even when I wear my white dress, she looked me up and down. Even though I shouldn't, she'll still always be more important, because if they choose her over their son, they'll choose her over some loose woman who got pregnant after dating a guy for 6 weeks. I told her, actually, I'm more important, and I'm never going away because I'm the mother of their grandchildren, and I'm going to have their last name, which Jake, Nora's parents, ever gave her, and all she is to them is a charity case who needs to get over her ex. Whole different story there. And she needs to see a therapist to work on her issues. Then I told her to sober up because she looks pathetic. She then broke down crying, and everyone came to see what was going on. I told Jake I wanted to go home. After hearing the whole story, his family's on my side, but his sister's mad about what I told her and said it's triggered her abandonment issues, which will put Jenny back into a dark place. Am I the idiot for telling my fiance's sister I'm going nowhere? Not the idiot. Jenny needs therapy, lots of it. Whatever happened with her family led to her fixation and fear of losing this family, but it's not an excuse to insult you and your place in the family. You didn't trigger her abandonment issues. They were on full display when she confronted you. If your future sister-in-law cares about Jenny, she should stop blaming you and get her friend some help. You were so close to not being the idiot, but then you told her that she's never going to mean anything to her family. That's how they treat her and how she likely views them, because she's just a charity case. That's excessively cruel. She was a child when she came to live with them. Do you think she was in a good place when that happened? Throwing someone's childhood trauma in their face like that wasn't necessary. You could have stopped at the grandchildren part. She was way out of line, but you know she has some serious issues. You went right for the jugular anyway. You are the idiot. I do not for the life of me understand all the you are the idiots. So what if you went for the jugular? You've put up with her for long enough. Don't dish it out if you can't handle someone clapping back. Honestly, I hate when someone gets crap for clapping back. You are not the idiot. Not every human alive is expected to be a saint. You can be petty and mean. I don't believe in starting a fight, but you sure can end it. And Jenny needs more than a lot of therapy. That poor girl needs to go away to someplace quiet for 30 days where there's nothing but therapy. She sounds like a mess. Update. Am I the idiot for telling my fiance's sister I'm going nowhere? So my in-laws came over today to talk about what's going on. Jake explained he doesn't want our family around Jenny anymore because her behavior is alarming. He said his family's free to come to our house to see our kids, but Jenny isn't allowed. Nor does he want her around us in the future because he hates her, and so does his other brother and his wife. His parents said they understood and apologized for everything, but his sister said they couldn't just shut her out because of her mental state. Jake said if she wants to keep Jenny in her life, that's fine, but she isn't family to us, and we don't want her in our lives. Sister-in-law said Jenny's her sister, and if we don't allow her to the wedding or family events, she won't go. She'll get another sibling to boycott too, which was hilarious and cringeworthy because they told her then and there they wouldn't boycott anything for Jenny. My sister-in-law then turned to me and said if anything happens to Jenny, I'm responsible because I started this. I told her I didn't care about Jenny or her mental health. She's a grown woman that needs to work on her issues, and she ended up leaving more angry than she arrived. My in-laws seem to be taking accountability for their part in letting Jenny's behavior go unchecked for so long, but we'll see how things play out. My mom and sister arrived earlier today, so I feel more at ease, especially since I'm beginning to get a feeling my daughter's going to make her entrance into the world in the next day or two. Thank you all. I, 30 female, and my husband got married when we were 25 after 6 years of dating. He passed away in an accident 3 months ago. A few weeks before the accident, I discovered he had a one-night stand with a woman he works with. When he died, I hadn't decided yet what would happen in our relationship. We entered counseling and were still living together, but obviously it was hectic. As I wasn't sure if we would divorce, I decided not to tell our families and only confided in a few close friends and my therapist. I didn't want opinions from everyone. I also didn't want to tell his family when he died. There was no reason to. A few weeks ago, the affair partner reached out to me. She's 5 months pregnant and preparing to raise the baby. She wanted me to tell his family because she wants her child to have a relationship with his family and be connected to his culture. I said I wouldn't do this and passed along their contact information. The crap hit the fan. Now they're coming around to the idea of having a relationship with the baby, but I don't want to, nor has the mother offered, which is fine. The mother's gotten back in touch with me to ask for some of my husband's possessions. She wants his clothes, books, record collection, and bizarrely, his wedding ring, for the baby to feel connected to its father. I've made it very clear to her that I will be giving her nothing of the sort. Her parents and brothers have some of his stuff, and she can access things like that through them. She kept pushing, and I lost my temper and called her an outrageous witch who should find some shame. I wouldn't be opposed to passing some of the stuff along to the child via my in-laws when they're older and can appreciate it. Not the wedding ring, which was the worst request, in my opinion, but other sentimental stuff. I've also retained a lawyer to look into whether I owe the child any money legally from my husband's passing. If I don't, I may set up a trust fund for them when they're an adult with his money, because I really don't need it, and that seems fair. I just don't want to give this woman all I have left of my husband. I really don't trust her with any of it. Obviously, she thinks I'm a bitter, raging monster, witch, and an idiot, and my in-laws are divided. My in-laws are largely supportive, but some think I must give some of his stuff to her and the baby. Some of his brothers have told me they're sympathetic, but that I'm behaving like an idiot and a baby by not cooperating for the child's sake. I'm unsure whether the complicated grief is clouding my judgment. Edit. My in-laws are getting a paternity test when the baby's born. That was the first thing they asked. However, the scans and due date line up perfectly when the affair occurred, so I think it is likely true. So we're preparing for this. Not the idiot. If she wants to get the possessions of her partner after they die, she should consider getting married instead of being the other woman. There's nothing bitter about what you're doing. She just doesn't know how life or the law works. It's not your job to have a relationship with the child. And I also don't understand why you'd need to set up a trust fund for the baby. You're willing to do more than you need to. Also, what exactly does your husband have that a baby would even want? Goodness gracious, clutch my pearls. His wedding rings? $5, and my left toe says that's so she can spin the tale that they were married and he isn't an affair baby. She wants the dead guy's stuff so she can tell her kid, oh, your father and I were very happy, and this bitter woman got in the way of our relationship. Homewrecker's up to something, that's for sure. Those are my thoughts too. I wouldn't be surprised if she takes some of the pictures OP has with her husband and photoshops her head and then starts demanding the grandparents use those pictures instead. If she's demanding his wedding ring, I have no doubt she would do something like that. I mean, she has zero shame in her game, contacting the wife looking for sympathy, you know? My thinking is that it wasn't a one-night stand. Yep, I'm wondering if he knew about this child all along. I think the mistress wants to spin that tale for herself. He would have left her and married me if he'd lived, so I'm his real wife, delusion. OP, your deceased husband's side piece wants you to give her your husband's stuff? Oh, heck no. You're not obligated to give her a darn thing, nor do you have monetary obligations toward her or the baby, since she was the side piece and not his wife. Block her and get a lawyer. Sorry for your loss, and for all the extra drama that comes with it. My wife's sister is getting married at some point and is working out the specific details. She and I get along fine, and our daughter, pre-tween, adores her and always asks to visit, and she's happily babysat when in a pinch. She recently dropped by and asked if we'd be all right with our daughter being her flower girl. We were both happy she asked, but I did have some concerns. Our daughter is low needs autistic, meaning she usually copes fine with most situations, but sometimes she needs extra help. One of the reasons I was concerned about the whole idea was because I knew it would involve three things that my daughter has difficulty with: being in fancy clothes, getting a lot of attention from a lot of people, performing a task while being watched. Either way, I didn't want to assume anything and said we'd talk to her about it. We did talk to her that day, and she had a lot of questions about it, which we answered. In the end, we showed her the video of my in-laws' wedding, where my wife was the flower girl, to give her an idea. At that point, I wasn't shocked when she said she didn't want to do it, but my wife brushed it off saying, "Oh, you'll be fine." So I pulled her aside to discuss. She said at this point, it'd be rude to make her sister find someone else. And besides, it's nothing to worry about. She even said that if she does cry, people will think it's funny and cute, and I might be the idiot for telling her that was a messed up thing to say. She even argued that this would be good exposure therapy for her, but she finally agreed when I wouldn't back down, provided I told my sister-in-law. I did, and she completely understood. She even felt guilty for asking when I explained why. Anyway, all was good. She had a backup from one of her fiance's cousins, so it was all fine. My wife thinks she was just being polite and is angry with me for causing drama by catering to a child. Am I the idiot for not making my daughter the flower girl at my sister-in-law's wedding? Not the idiot. I'm actually a bit concerned about your wife's treatment of your child. Just because she's young doesn't mean she cannot make her own choices. She's plenty old enough to know what she does and doesn't want to do, and forcing her to do something that even an adult may be uncomfortable doing is cruel. I'm glad you stood your ground on this one. Catering to a child? Finding it cute or funny that a child cries from being terrified? Also, exposure therapy? Heck no. And most of the time it would just be traumatic for the person. Dude, is your wife this obtuse and gross all the time? Watch that woman and start saving up for your daughter's therapy. I'm glad you stood up for your daughter. I'm shocked your sister-in-law has more empathy and understanding towards your daughter's needs than your own wife. Yeah, I think we need to reinforce to people that therapy is carried out by professionals. If you aren't an expert, all that will happen is that you'll worsen the situation. You don't try to carry out DIY heart surgery on your dog, so don't try DIY exposure therapy on your daughter. I know, right? I couldn't believe that was her mom's point of view. Not even sister-in-law. I had my young niece and nephew as a flower girl and boy, and I made it super clear to their parents that if they just weren't feeling it on the day, to not worry about it. Bring some clothes. You know they'll be okay in as backup, and they can do as much as they're up for. My nephew got a bit overwhelmed by the end of the day, more from the number of people than being a flower boy, and had lost most of his outfit, but hey, niece wore the outfit for 3 days straight. LOL. Mom is nuts for not having compassion and thinking it's funny for her to be overwhelmed. It seems a bit like mom really liked the idea of the daughter doing it, or being the kind of kid who liked doing it, putting her own wants, being the mom of the cute flower girl, over her daughter. I have 2 daughters in high school. Sam is an A student and Emma's a B and C student. Sam has basically been making fun of Emma for her lower grades. We punish her when it happens, but she always goes back to it. Now the difference between the 2 girls is that Sam takes the general classes, whereas Emma takes the college classes. For example, Sam took biology as her science, and Emma took college physics too. So, very different. Summer's here, and the final grades have come in. Sam got all A's, and when she saw she did better, she started the "I'm smarter" comments again. I had enough at this point. I grabbed one of Emma's old tests. It was the geometry test since Sam took geometry this year, and I sat her down and had her do it. Long story short, she was in tears. And then I explained how grades don't measure your smartness, that she's in much easier classes compared to Emma. I think it finally got through to her. My wife was informed of what happened before she came home, and she was angry about how I could do that to Sam. While Emma and I were still at home, she took her to get ice cream to make up for it. Not the idiot. Sam needed a reality check. The reason Sam's grades are higher than Emma's is that Emma takes college-level classes. You do need to worry about the relationship your daughters will have in the future. I foresee Emma going no contact with Sam if this continues and/or escalates. So Sam doesn't deserve perspective, but it's okay to constantly attack Emma's intelligence? Tell me your wife has a golden child without telling me your wife has a golden child. Good on you for stopping the bullying behavior of the one daughter. Your wife, however, needs to improve her parenting skills. Okay, but for Sam to have started this, she felt inadequate compared to Emma. Your job now as a parent is to ask yourself why Sam felt inadequate compared to Emma, that the only solution her half-baked brain could come up with was to start knocking her down a peg, and address the source of the issue. Their relationship might recover this time, but resentment doesn't just go away. You didn't take away resentment in the way you corrected Sam. You might even have reinforced it by making her feel more of the very shame and inadequacy she already felt. It's likewise your job to prevent all those feelings from getting forwarded to Emma, especially the ones you just created. This feels like everyone's taking the easy way out of parenting these days instead of addressing what's really going on. You are the idiot. You need to do some serious introspection about the dynamic of competition you've established and fostered between your children. Stop making it worse and empower each child to recognize their strengths. Update: for those wondering, we have talked to her multiple times, and we've tried to get to the bottom of it. Her answer is she doesn't think it's a big deal. I took Emma to her favorite restaurant and filled my wife in with what happened, not Sam's story. We're going to have a big talk later, but she basically said in the text she messed up. Not to mention when Sam was calmer, my wife got a clearer story and realized she went off the handle without the facts. I had a birthday a few months ago, and I told my girlfriend to not get me anything. I didn't want or need anything, that this wasn't a secret challenge to find something I would like. I genuinely didn't want any gifts. Of course, she gets me some gifts, and I hate them. She gave me junk and a responsibility, two things I don't want more of in my life. She got me this crappy little plastic egg cooker thing. She knows I make hard-boiled eggs in the pressure cooker, and I've expressed before that they come out perfect every time and that I love it, so I don't need some piece of junk as seen on TV replacement. She also got me a small cactus, which I see as nothing more than a responsibility I don't want. I know cacti are pretty low maintenance, but I just don't care for them, and I have nowhere to put it. And I have a cat who likes to rub on things and push them over. It was a mess waiting to happen, which caused anxiety in me. And the only place to put it was in this one window in my tiny apartment where the curtain's always drawn, so it's not like I ever see the thing. So I threw it all away. After a few months, these things sit unused and unenjoyed, just being useless clutter and waste of money. And now she's mad and has been very distant lately. She said that it was the thought that counted, but I told her that it didn't seem like any thought was put into these gifts. I realize I'm hard to shop for, so I expressly don't want anyone getting anything for me. I'm very picky. You are the idiot. It is the thought that counts. Your whole attitude about this is so cold. She tried to find things that applied to your life. Yes, she missed, but you don't even appreciate the time she spent thinking about you. Some people express their love with gifts. She wanted you to know she thought of you. With the cactus, you could have sat her down and told her you appreciated the gesture, explained the cat issue, and asked if she'd keep it for you at her place, or if she'd be okay if you passed it to a friend, etc. OP could have even re-gifted them versus throwing them out. Explained he gave them to somebody who would appreciate them. It probably would have still hurt, but better than just him tossing the stuff in the trash. Instead, throwing them away, along with the wording used here, gives me the impression there was anger in the disposal of these gifts. It wasn't, "She tried, but these aren't right for me. Someone else would appreciate them more." It's, "This is garbage. How dare she buy me garbage? I'm putting it where it belongs." I would not buy him one single thing ever again. I'm sure a comparison between OP and the cactus could be made. LOL. Yeah, too bad he threw away his spirit plant. Chill, dude. She just wanted to make you a bit happier. You could have later told her gently, after accepting the gifts, that you appreciated it, but she really didn't have to. Or you could have helped her out by sending her a wish list prior to your birthday. You're not only a hard person to shop for, you generally seem hard to be around. Honestly, not the idiot. You told her you didn't want a gift, and she still got you one. Obviously, this is an issue for you, and your girlfriend should know you well enough to know that when you say you don't want anything, you really mean it. It seems she wants to make herself feel good about getting you something, while ignoring that it doesn't make you feel good. And what's the point of a gift if it makes the other person feel bad? A nice gesture is only nice if the receiver appreciates it. I, 35 female, and my husband, 32, have been trying to have a kid for 5 years, and I recently found out I was pregnant. So far, I'm 25 weeks. My cravings recently kicked in, and the only thing I want is literally Hawaiian pizza. Today I was craving it all day, so I got one from Papa John, and I also got some breadsticks. I had 3 slices and then decided to take a nap. I woke up at 7:50, and I wanted to get another slice and some breadsticks. When I did, there was none left. I was reasonably upset, as I'd been craving it. I then asked my husband and sister-in-law which one of them ate my pizza. Sister-in-law admitted that she had eaten it and that she was hungry and pretty tired from work. Sister-in-law goes to work from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. I screamed at my sister-in-law and told her to replace it immediately. Sister-in-law refused and said that I was acting ridiculous. I started crying, and my husband calmed me down and ordered me a pizza. My sister-in-law thinks I'm an idiot. So, am I? Edit. My sister-in-law has done this before, where I've gotten food and have made it crystal clear that it's for me, and she still hates that this has gone on, even before I got pregnant. We're allowing sister-in-law to stay here until she can move into her own apartment, but I'm so fed up. Not the idiot. She ate the rest of your food without asking you? That's rude as heck. She ate over half a pizza that wasn't hers, and she didn't even leave any, and then refused to get you another. Utterly ridiculous. My husband would have prepared sister-in-law's grave if he had been in this situation. Everyone's the idiot here. It was rude of her to eat your food, but your reaction was just inappropriate. There are a few situations where screaming is an appropriate response for an adult. Pregnancy, hormones, yada yada, I get it, but it's still not an excuse to act a fool. You're going to be a mother. Grow up. Apparently they're doing a favor for Sis and letting her stay with them, and Sis has repaid them by taking the food in the past that wasn't hers. If someone I'm allowing to live in my home until they can move out decides to eat 2/3 of my food plus breadsticks without deciding to pay me back, especially if they've done this before, I'm yelling. This is not a situation where sister-in-law comes and eats one slice. She ate the entire pizza and breadsticks and didn't offer to pay it back or replace it. I don't know where you're from. That's incredibly messed up and completely lacking in etiquette.